Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something loads of people wonder about, especially when, everyone around you seems to be sniffling.
Ah, the vitamin D question.
Exactly. Can taking vitamin D supplements actually stop you from catching a cold? I mean, so many people take it for that reason. You see it flying off the shelf.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. Apparently, it's the second most common supplement in the U.S., right after multivitamins.
Wow. Okay.
And, there's some history there. People didn't just pull this idea out of thin air. There was earlier research, like a big review back in 2021.
Right, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, a meta-analysis. And it suggested maybe a small protective effect, a modest one, they called it, from taking vitamin D daily against those common colds, acute respiratory infections.
Okay, so a hint of something, but maybe not a slam dunk.
Sort of. But science keeps moving, doesn't it?
It does. And that's why we're here today, right?
Don't you say?
To really unpack some new research that revisits this whole question. We're going to dig into a big new analysis just published in The Lancet.
A top journal. And to help us understand it, we're looking at the work of the lead author, Dr. Carlos Camargo Jr. He's a professor of epidemiology over at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health.
Okay, great. And we also have some perspective from someone who wasn't involved in the study, right? A pulmonologist.
Yes, Dr. Neil Schluger. He's the dean at New York Medical College's School of Medicine. He provided some really useful commentary on these findings.
Excellent. So let's get into it. This big new analysis in The Lancet. What did they actually find when they crunched the numbers again?
Well, what's really key here is that they didn't just reanalyze the old stuff. They added in a whole bunch of newer studies that have come out since that 2021 review.
Ah, okay. So more data.
A lot more. They ended up with data from 46 different studies, and that included over 64,000 people.
64,000. Wow. That's a serious number of participants.
It really is. Gives you a lot more statistical power,
So how did they approach analyzing all that? I imagine combining 46 studies isn't straightforward.
No, it's complex, but basically the core method was comparing the folks in these studies who got vitamin D supplements versus the ones who got a placebo. A dummy pill.
Standard practice for good trials.
Exactly. And they were careful to look at different things that might matter, like how old were the participants, what dose of vitamin D were they getting, and importantly, what were their vitamin D levels before the study started, their baseline levels.
Right, because maybe it only helps people who are low to begin with.
That's often the question, yeah. And to pull all this data together, they used a specific statistical method, a random effects model, which is designed for combining results from different studies like this.
Okay, got it. So, the moment of truth. After all that analysis, what was the headline finding? Did vitamin D help prevent colds?
Well, here's the big takeaway. For the general population, the study found that vitamin D supplementation did not offer statistically significant protection against getting acute respiratory infections.
No. So, basically no real effect overall.
Not one that reached statistical significance. And interestingly, this held true no matter how they sliced the data. It didn't matter about age, the dosage people took, or even their starting vitamin D levels.
Huh. Even for those with low levels initially.
Even then, when looking at the overall pooled data, there wasn't a statistically significant benefit found for preventing infections.
Okay. And what about side effects? Any issues there?
That's another important point. They also found that taking vitamin D wasn't linked to any more side effects than taking the placebo, so it seems safe and the doses steady, just not effective for this specific purpose for most people.
Right. So what did Dr. Schluger, the pulmonologist, make of this? Did it surprise him?
Not really, it seems. He mentioned that these new results actually fit quite well with what the largest, best-designed individual studies, those big randomized controlled trials, have generally shown.
Which is
usually no clear benefit for preventing respiratory infections. He pointed out that even in that older 2021 review, the modest effect they found was, just barely statistically significant.
So it was maybe a bit borderline to begin with.
Potentially. And now adding in these newer, larger trials seems to have tilted the balance, showing that for most people, the evidence just isn't there for preventing common colds with vitamin D.
Okay, that seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Dr. Camargo, the lead author. Did he see any nuances? It sounds like he suggested it might be more complicated than just saying it doesn't work.
Yes, exactly. And this is crucial. Dr. Camargo cautioned against treating all vitamin D supplementation the same way. He sort of raised the point that maybe, just maybe, certain subgroups could still benefit, even if the average effect across everyone is zero.
Subgroups? Like who?
Like potentially those people who start with really low vitamin D levels.
Yeah.
He suggested that for them, taking maybe a low dose but taking it regularly might still offer some immune support against infections.
Okay, so it's not necessarily completely closed door for everyone.
It seems not entirely. The idea is that any potential small benefit in that specific low-level group gets kind of, well, drowned out or diluted when you average it across the entire huge population in the analysis. That's why the overall result comes back as not statistically significant.
I see. So the big picture average says no, but there might be specific situations.
Precisely. As Dr. Carmago put it, if you're looking for a simple yes or no answer on vitamin D for colds, the real answer is probably, it depends.
Right. That makes sense. It's rarely black and white in biology, is it?
Almost never.
Okay, this is super helpful for understanding the cold prevention angle. If you listening are finding this useful, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. It helps others find this info. And hey, don't forget, we've put some links to high-quality vitamin D products down in the description if you do need them for other reasons. They can support your overall health. Check those out. And if you have questions or ideas for future topics, drop them in the comments.
Good point. Because even if it's not the magic bullet for colds that some hoped, vitamin D is still really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Why do we still need adequate vitamin D?
Well, it's involved in so much. Crucially, immune function generally, not just for colds, but overall immune health. And then there's the really well-established stuff. Bone health, muscle function.
Calcium absorption, right?
Exactly. And it also plays a role in regulating inflammation in the body. So getting enough is definitely still important for overall well-being.
So who should potentially be thinking about supplements based on what the experts are saying? Not for colds necessarily, but for general health.
Well, the classic examples are people who don't get much sun exposure. Maybe you live somewhere with long, dark winters, or you spend most of your time indoors. Your skin makes less vitamin D naturally then.
Makes sense. Anyone else?
People diagnosed with osteoporosis, definitely.
Right.
Vitamin D is usually part of their treatment plan because it helps the body use calcium to maintain bone strength.
Okay. But for most other people, supplements aren't the first stop. What about food?
Right. Diet should be the focus first, and thankfully lots of foods are fortified these days. You see it in milk, a lot of breakfast cereals, orange juice sometimes, even some breads.
And natural sources too.
Yep. Fatty fish are great sources. Salmon, mackerel, tuna. The real key is aiming for a varied, balanced diet overall. That usually helps cover your bases for lots of nutrients, including vitamin D.
So back to the colds then. If vitamin D isn't the answer for most of us, what does Dr. Schluger say actually works? What's the evidence-based advice for trying to stay healthy?
He points to the fundamentals, really. Things we know work. Maintaining a generally healthy diet is key. Avoiding tobacco use smoking is really bad for respiratory health.
For sure.
And keeping up to date on your vaccinations, especially things like the flu shot and vaccines against bacteria that cause pneumonia, like pneumococcus. Those prevent serious respiratory illness.
So the basics still hold true.
Pretty much. Focus on those evidence-backed strategies.
And what was Dr. Schluger's final word on supplements in general? Just take them if you feel like it.
No, he advised caution. Basically, unless your doctor has actually tested you, found you're deficient in something specific, like vitamin D, and recommended you take a supplement, probably best not to just take them randomly.
Got it. Focus on lifestyle, get tested, is concerned, and follow medical advice.
That sums it up nicely.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together then. If you had to give the main takeaway message from this deep dive on vitamin D and colds, what would it be?
I'd say the main point is that based on the best current evidence, including this really large new analysis, widespread vitamin D supplementation just isn't supported as a way to prevent common colds for most people.
But that doesn't mean vitamin D itself isn't important.
Absolutely not. You still need adequate levels for overall health, immune support, bones, muscles, inflammation. That hasn't changed.
And the best way to get it for most people.
Diet first fortified foods, fatty fish, sensible sun exposure, and only supplement if you fall into those specific groups, like people with low sun exposure or osteoporosis, ideally under a doctor's guidance.
And for actually dodging those colds.
Stick to what we know works. Healthy lifestyle, no smoking, and get your recommended vaccinations. That's your best bet based on the science.
This has been really clarifying. It shows how science isn't static, you know? We learn more, the picture gets refined.
Definitely.
Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Given the complexity here with vitamin D, what other things that seem like simple health advice, maybe other popular supplements or lifestyle habits, might actually be way more nuanced than we generally assume?
That's a great question. What common assumptions are we making, maybe without fully realizing the complexity underneath? Lots to ponder there.
Indeed. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Hope you found this breakdown helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future explorations.
And remember those links in the description for quality vitamin D products if you do need them for bone health or other reasons.
Yep, check them out. And definitely let us know in the comments if you have questions or if there's another health topic you'd like us to tackle next time. Thanks for joining us.